Hi guys, and welcome back to another video again with Powers. I'm Jake, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you my review of the brand new board game Lords of Ragnarök, coming to you from Awaken Realms and Adam Kwapiński. Alright, I hope I pronounced his name right. But Lords of Ragnarök is basically the spiritual successor to Lords of Hellas, which is dudes on a map, essentially area control, and you are trying to instead of the Greek mythology, like Lords of Hellas, we are in the Norse mythology. All right, guys, before I talk about any further, again, I do apologize for the audio quality. I'm finding out that my voice is echoing in this new room, and so I'm probably going to have to get a mic that I'm gonna have to attach to my t-shirt. So again, I do apologize for the echo-ness of the voice, but I want to get content out, so let's just try and move through this. Normally, what I would do is I would have stuff down on the table, kind of show you how to play, but Lords of Ragnarök is a heavy game. I have, however, done a in-depth and how to look video, basically how to play, in-depth look and how to play of Lords of Ragnarök. I'll go ahead and link that somewhere up here so you guys can click on that if you are interested to see how the game is actually played and things like that. So let's go ahead and dive right in and talk about my review. All right, starting with the theme here. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 9 out of 10. I think this is an outstanding theme to a game. Of course, it's Awaken Realms, right? They're going to give you a great production. They always have great thematic games with a lot of presence. And so this game really does give you that feel of, what am I looking for? That old... I don't want to say old-timey because I feel like that's Western, but even before that, you know, like let's take TV shows or movies like Game of Thrones or those old war movies where they have that table, the war table, and they have the chess pieces or the figure pieces on the board, and they're like, look, this is where our army is, and this is where the other army is, and we're trying to do battle, and you're trying to configure your setup on the lands. This game kind of gives you that feel, right? It gives you that feel of you pick a Norse hero, right? And you get your army and you're putting your army on the lands and you're trying to control the lands, but you also have priests that you can send out to different shrines and pray to like Odin and Thor and Freya to gain a bunch of different stats and wisdoms to boost your hero and things like that. And so just really across the board, it's a great thematic production. You really do feel like you are the leader and you have an army and you're trying to control the lands and slay monsters and do all that thing. So I think Awaken Realms definitely did a great job, and Lords of Ragnarök does a great job of bringing you into that Norse mythology and making you feel like you are actually on a battlefield trying to navigate, well, I don't want to say make it feel like you're actually on the battlefield, but make you feel like you are a strategist and you are trying to plan on a battlefield of what's going on, right? So that is my rating for the theme here, 9 out of 10. Okay, moving on to the components. As always, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump down to the table and I'm going to show off some of these components. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the top camera set up yet, so I'm going to have to use this camera over here to the side. So we won't get a great top-down view of all the components, but I'm going to try and give you a solid view of the components, and I'll talk about them as we show them off. Alright, so let's take a look at these components here. Again, with Awaken Realms here, you got to give these components a 10 out of 10. These are just fantastic. All these fantastic miniatures. I'll take one out here. I mean, look at the details on these miniatures, all the small little crevices that they have in here. The details are phenomenal on every miniature. You got the ships themselves as well. And this version you're looking at is the Sundrop version here. The Sundrop version of all these miniatures. And then we'll just grab a hero. I think this is Beowulf or Auslog. Here are your heroes if he wants to come into vision here. But that is him. Oh, there you go. And look at all the amazing details on these minis. All right, Awaken Realm is always known for their minis. Fantastic, fantastic. Let's take a look at some of these other, oops, sorry for the noise. Take a look at some of these other components. Again, you have these nice boss cards that come in their own little sleeve. They're just pretty much cardboard, or, you know, I don't want to say cardboard, but they are pretty much just your standard oversized card feel. And I'll take one of them out so you can see. So they're not super thick here, but they got a good texture to them. They have a nice glossy finish to them. Everything on the print is very clear and easy to see in regards to that. your player boards, these are dual layer player boards. These are cardboard. They are pretty thick. However, they can get bent. What really bugs me a little bit is these little corners, these little edges right here that my thumb is on. You can see they're going to get bent, and I'll show you it actually happened to my my blue one, if I can find it. Yeah, right here. So you see how it got bent right there. I was getting it out, and this little insert right here got snagged on something, and it kind of pulled and yanked that. So you do got to watch out for that. But other than that, they are pretty thick and steady, and I do love the dual player boards. Okay, moving on to just regular components. Nice plastic pieces. A lot of other cardboard pieces. All of your realms are nice cardboard pieces, and it's just good artwork, good quality production here in regards to that. And then the final thing is obviously taking a look at these wonderful monuments. As I get all this stuff, I'm gonna stack it over here. You have these wonderful, I'll just pull Odin out. You have these wonderful, awesome monuments that you can build and construct throughout the game, and you know you'll break them apart here just like that and put them back together. And so the detail and quality, I mean, this is just amazing. Again, this is the sun drop finish. And then last but not least, what else do I want to show off? You got your miniature priests and things like that. These priests, great details on them. And then you just have cards, right? So you have mini cards here, and then you have, I can pull out one of the other side. So this is like an action card. So these are relic cards. Again, these are just standard 52 playing card feel, things like that. They got a nice finish. Obviously, these are sleeved. So those are the components, the awesome components that you got to take a look at. Again, I got to give them a 10 out of 10 here. They are just fantastic, phenomenal. Awaken Realms does a great production with a lot of their games. All right, moving on to the setup here. I'm going to actually go ahead and get the setup a 6.5, okay? I'm giving it a notch below a normal or an average setup, because you know these games, these big productions, these big games, they're going to take you a while to set up, right? And so that's kind of how I rank everything, is based upon other games in this area. How long does it take you to set up? And so for me, what's going to give it that notch below is just there's so many cards in the game, right? You have like an action deck, you have the combat card deck, you got the Monster Hunter deck, you got the event deck. And so really that's what takes the most amount of time, is getting this whole giant stack of cards out, and then basically just like here, I'll put it out and show you. So you see this whole left side of the box, you're going to use almost majority. Now some of these are the Autonoma cards, so I think from like here up are the Autonoma cards, but all of these cards down here you will be used, including these. And so it's just trying to sort all those cards out. Other than that, I mean, the rulebook does a great job with the setup, laying out where everything goes, but again, it is going to be long, it is going to be tedious. I'm going to say, you know, the first time I pulled this game out, it took me around 30 minutes to set up a 2-player game. As I've gotten more comfortable, but it takes me around 20 minutes to set up a 3 or 4 player game, because you got to give all the boards, the minis to each player. They pick their characters. You go through a draft phase. You got to set up the board with all the with everything on the board. If you're using the terrain expansion, which I have over here, that's going to add a little bit more setup time. But just with the base game, setup time 6.5 out of 10. I think it's right around average, but it's just a little more time consuming setting up all those cards and everything like that. So that's where we got. Moving on to the length here. So the box says 90 to 180 minutes. I'm going to give the length a 7. I'm going to give it a 7 here. I think it's just average. You know, I think it's good for a game that's around this size and this length. You're going to be more on that 180 side, more likely, than the 90 side. But what's cool about the game is all of the different ways to win, right? So there's, you know, players can get very lucky and they can hit those 2 monsters very quick, and then get to the boss and fight the boss, and the game can end very quickly, or you can get those temples out very quickly. There's no set, you know, with it being multiple ways to win the game, the length is going to vary in here, but I really do find that average of each game to maybe be around 2 hours, right? So if you're going to get this out to the table, at least carve out 2.5 hours to get a good solid playthrough in of Lords of Ragnarok. To me, again, it's hitting that 180 mark. It's within the range of what they're telling me. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's good, right in that average range. All right, difficulty now. So I'm going to go ahead and remember with difficulty, the lower the number, the easier we feel the game is. The higher the number, the harder we feel the game is. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 6.5 out of 10. Look, BGG weights this at a 3.71, all right, out of 5. And so I was kind of looking at that, and that's like a 7 out of 10. I think that was like 74% or something like that when you did the math out of 5. And so it's technically right in that 70% range out of 10. But I think for me, it's a 6.5. Look, the game is somewhat difficult to pick up. You're going to have to play it once or twice to get all the nuts and bolts. Any game that gives you 3 player aid cards, okay? You know there's a lot going on with the game, and so they give you 3 player aid cards. But and my only qualm with some of those player aid cards is they don't really go in depth about what some of those things do. They just kind of tell you, like, okay, with 1 rune, you can do this action, you can do this action, you can do this action, and sometimes it doesn't really explain what that action does, okay? The rulebook also does not do a really good job of explaining things, and like things are always like way like out of order. I don't want to say out of order, but like you'll be reading a section and then you'll go to a whole nother section and then there'll be a box with something about this section over here. And so it's very confusing the way the rulebook is set up. And so I think the rulebook does need a lot of work. And again, the rulebook doesn't really give you a lot of scenarios, okay? I remember the first time I actually played this game, and I'll be honest here, the first time I posted a video, I did like a how to play of Lords of Ragnarok, and I appreciate you guys. I got shredded for it because I did all the rules wrong and I was playing the game completely wrong. And so it was hard for me to grasp. And so then once I took y'all's feedback of what y'all were saying you actually got to do, and I mashed it up with the rule book, it was only then that it made sense. So for me, interpreting the first time in the rule book, it was really confusing. And so it's going to take you a while to understand this game because of all these small little things that are going on within the game. You know, not only do they have, can you take turns, but then when you take a turn and do an action, you know, this will happen or this will happen, but this thing will only happen one time, or this thing will happen the first time a player gets on here, and then you can stack your little chips on top of another player who took an action, but then you can't take that action again. And so it's just really confusing the first couple times. That's why I'm giving this a 6.5 out of 10. Moving on to replayability. Look, I'm going to give replayability here an 8 out of 10. I think this is great replayability here with the multiple game modes, or I won't say game modes, the multiple victory conditions. That's the better word to put it. With the multiple victory conditions, the game is always going to fluctuate and you're always going to have different strategies, right? Maybe it might be more beneficial for me to take out the monsters and not worry about all the battles because I don't have that many cards, right? Or maybe it might be better for me to like try and get all the temples and things like that. And so what's cool is your ability to change up your strategy kind of on the fly. And that's what I've done a couple times is I've tried to do the strategy of let me control 5 temples, because there's a victory condition where if you control the lands of 5 built temples, you win the game. So let me try and work on that strategy. But then in the process, what I'm realizing is, oh, all I need to do is actually control 1 more land and I can win the game straight up. And so you kind of shift those strategies around while you're inside the game playing it. And I think that's cool. And then obviously with the different characters, they have different player powers and things like that. There's just a lot of ways to change the game up and play it. And so I think it's not going to give you that same feel every single time. So 8 out of 10 for me. Let's talk about the price here. So this is retailing at about $130. I think the cheapest I found it was like $127 online. That's a pretty hefty price, but that's typically around average of what you see from these Lords of Ragnarök, these big box productions. And so I think at that $130 range, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. I think that's good, right? You're getting a lot of good value here. Anytime you have a company like Awaken Realms, you know what you're getting. It's great quality production. The miniatures are amazing, and this kind of will always hold its value, right? I should have checked online to see where Lords of Hellas is doing, but I have a pretty good feel that Lords of Hellas is maintaining its value, and so I can see the same thing here going in this regard with Lords of Ragnarök over time, because of the nice production, because of the miniatures and things like that, because of your theme. You're going to be able to, it will hold its value, and I would say you would probably be able to get at least 100 for this game if you were trying to resell it back on the market. You might be able to get any more if you hold it, all right? But that is my price, a 7 out of 10. All right, moving on to my overall ratings here. I'm gonna give this a 8.5 out of 10. I'm so close to giving it a 9 here, but let me tell you why. I think really it just has to do with the 2-player version of the game, right? When you're playing with 2 players, you have to flip the board over and do a whole nother side of the board. And instead of playing horizontal, you got to flip the board vertically. And it's really weird because it almost seems like there's a section of the board that's missing, which technically there is, because that's the side you're going to use for 5 players. And there's a whole nother section of a 5-player board that you would attach to it. So when you're playing it, it's like you know that there's something there, but it just feels like something's missing, and it just kind of feels awkward to me, right? And then at that 2-player mode, you don't really get a full enjoyment or a great experience with the game, because if you don't have to really battle each other, right? You can avoid each other and stay on the separate sides of the map, and one person can help monsters or everybody. Then it just becomes basically a race to see who can control the most lands or build the most temples and do that. And so you really don't get an enjoyment about the game, because I feel the enjoyment of the game is that combat system of battling the armies in the lands and putting the cards down and things like that, right? Where the game really does shine is that 3 to 4 player count. At 3 to 4 players, you got enough space on the board. At 4 players, the board can kind of get crowded, especially if you're using that terrain expansion. And so it kind of is overwhelming at first. But again, that's where this game really shines, because you're battling, you're trying to do different strategies, and you're like, well, you know, I got to look out. I'm trying to battle this person, but I look out this person behind me because he can come in and clean up all my leftovers, basically, and when my army is decimated and things like that. So there's a lot. It makes the game enjoyable at that player count, and so that's why I'm really giving it that 8.5. But other than that, I really do enjoy the game, even though it is somewhat difficult to grasp. I think this is a great area control game. I think the theme for me is really awesome. That Nordic, I'm a huge mythology fan, whether it's Greek or Pantheon fan, I guess you could say, whether it's Greek, Norse, Hindu, whatever. And so that's really what does it. And then just being able to construct all the monuments and doing battle with the monsters. And I think the multiple victory conditions for me is what really satisfies this game, or what really makes this game satisfying to me. I think if it was just a straight up area control, I wouldn't enjoy it as much. But having those different options of like, look, maybe I don't really want to battle right now, so I don't have to. I can maybe try and hunt a monster. Giving me that option is so much better, right? So that's my overall rating, 8.5. Here's something new that I'm going to add to our reviews, guys. Is going to be a recommendation. Do I think you should buy this game? Let me give it to you. If you are primarily playing this game as 2 players, I do not recommend buying this game. I don't think this game, again, really works for 2 players. However, if you have a game group, if you like Nordic mythology and you like area control games, and you're going to be able to get this game out quite often with at least 3 or 4 players. At $130, I think the game is worth it and you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Again, I said if you don't like it and you don't end up getting it to the table a whole lot, you will be able to get some value back for it. Like I said, I feel like at least $100. I haven't checked eBay right now. I'm sure the prices on this on eBay are ridiculous because I think it just now came to retail, if I'm not mistaken. But even then, it's the base version. So if you got the Sun Drop or something like that, you can get more value. But that is my recommendation, guys. Again, I think if you primarily play with 2 players, I would avoid this and avoid spending the $130. But if you have a good game group and that game group meets regularly and they like area control, I think this is a game that you should definitely buy and have in your collection. All right, guys. Well, look, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please go ahead and drop a like. Let us know if I did good, if you agree with me or not. And as always, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so we can keep bringing you more awesome content. Y'all have a great one. Bye.